And 3 months later, he was wrestling on his own show. But anyway, but that wasn't I didn't think anything of it at the time. I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. The moment I really realized he started getting an ego was Class Wars began. He started filming his little internet show that I'm sure everybody's heard about because, Billy Rock thinks it's the next Tough Enough. And he started filming in late January. February, he did a shoot, February 13th, I think it was, or 14th, something like that, and I was in Delaware. Actually, I think it was the 13th. I think I was in Delaware on February 12th or something like that. So I was in Delaware that weekend, so I wasn't going to be there. And I get this Facebook message that Monday sent to everybody, saying, oh, I'm disappointed with how yesterday went. Everybody better show up next week ready to film, blah, 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 blah. So I texted him. I said, what happened? And he's like, Trip Cassidy broke his hand 20 minutes before the shoot because he got in a fight with his girlfriend. And he sends me 6-page text or whatever, and it said in there, it's like, I realize we're not CZW or we're not Chikara, but if you can at least use your mind and think a little before you do something stupid. He's like, it just makes me mad more and more as I think about the fact that he blew this opportunity we were giving him. And I had 2 problems. Number 1, does anybody get in a fight with their significant other before they do something stupid, like punch some random object? Do they sit there and go, well, hang on, I think I got an opportunity coming up, I better not do that. No, that's why it's called heat of the moment. Number 2, the fact that here Trip Cassidy is, he's a good buddy of Billy's because he also works at the same shoot job as Billy. Him and Billy, he has basically become to Billy what I used to be, which was kind of like his right-hand man, his go-to guy. And here Billy is, looking at this guy, not even being like, well, I'm glad his hand's okay, I just wish he wouldn't have screwed up this opportunity. No, it's, he screwed up this opportunity, which at the time, who knew what this opportunity was going to be? It was a show being put on YouTube. That doesn't mean anything. Does that mean we're stars now because this has been on YouTube? It really bothered me. I'm like, wow, he really thinks this is something. And it did get some notoriety. So, a couple weeks later, he texts me, says he got me on a Resistance Pro in Chicago. And I've been trying to get in there for the past couple of months, so I was like, oh, cool. I was like, how'd this happen? So I text him. And he tells me to call him. I call him, and he says, well, I just reread the text. They're going to take my,
input.
Yeah, input under consideration when they make their choice. But it's between you, Tripp, and Sue Jackson. And I'll be honest, what I told him is, okay, well, this sounds like they're looking for characters. And me and Tripp, no offense to Sue, Sue's a character, but he's not a character with charisma. That's what it sounded like they were looking for. So I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. And he tells me how it happened is Tom Green, his right-hand man who wrote Class Wars, by the way, was the brains behind it. Tom Green had showed the Class Wars stuff to some guy who's real influential there in Chicago. And he passed on to Resistance Pro, hey, take a look at these guys. So Billy Corgan started watching. So Tom Green's technically the one that got us this opportunity. And Billy says this to me on the phone. Oh, thank you, Billy Rock. Thank you for missing out on sleep or losing sleep or something else. And I was taken aback to the point where I asked him to repeat it. For one, because I didn't hear what the second thing was. I didn't hear it when he repeated it. But number 2, I was like, my jaw dropped. That Billy Rock, Mr. Humble himself, Mr. Nicest guy in Indiana, is sitting here basically almost like demanding a thank you? Like putting words in my mouth, a thank you?
Especially when the opportunity never happened. So.
Yeah. And not to mention again, he wasn't the one that did it. It was Tom Green was the one who had the connection that got us that opportunity to possibly do that. So a couple weeks later, I texted him and said, hey, did you ever hear anything back from Resistance? He's like, oh, they went with Tripp and Sue. And that didn't bother me. But at the same time, there's a part of me that wonders if Billy even put in a word for me. If Billy wasn't pushing for them because they were technically his real trainees. So I started thinking after that. Billy couldn't get me into Resistance. Tom Green had tried to get me into Chaotic the year before. It didn't work out in Massachusetts because that was a goal of mine to wrestle out there. And so I started looking at it. I got down to Texas on my own. Wrestled for Booker T. I made it out to Delaware on my own. And when people were helping me get my foot in the door, it wasn't happening. So I realized I had to do this on my own. So I went to Billy in April. We were flying for Chikara, and he got us on Chikara, and I was grateful. But I was in a different place too, and I didn't want to be pigeonholed into comedy. It was starting to anger me that was happening. So I went to him and I said, hey, after Chikara, I want to get my own bookings. I want to do things on my own, and this is what I told him. I said, I want to get my own bookings, but I'm still going to fly the School of Rock banner. I need to do things on my own. And he had said, I'll mark your name off the list. I told him to give my spot to Reed Bentley, who was a very talented individual in Louisville. Everything was cool. I thought, and the night before Chikara, I went ahead and confessed to Billy that, I was like, I'm just kind of a placeholder in this match. Everybody else, do their thing. I was like, I'm just kind of there to fill a spot because everything I'd seen from Chikara was comedy, and I just didn't want to be pigeonholed. I was starting to get angry at the fact that IPW had done it to me, and I wanted to sink my teeth into something serious. I wanted to do spots. I wanted to do moves, and I was tired of being pigeonholed into comedic. So I told him this, and he was like, all right. He's like, you kind of took a spot away from Reed Bentley, but no big deal. And he was saying it in jest, and it was cool, no big deal. We did the match at Chikara, and to be honest, it changed my mind. Like, I really started looking around at Chikara, like, man, I think it'd be fun to be here. And so we do Chikara, everything's cool. May, I wrestled Fire Pro in the very first cage match in the company's history. He sent me a text, gave me one of the real motivational texts he always sent me for my big matches, tear it up, blow the roof off, and all this, and everything was cool. Then June rolled around. And actually, I didn't realize it until June, but I think we started filming this in last April. Mm-hmm. And you were saying, I'll message Tom Green about, we were going to put it on DVD originally. You were like, I'll message Tom Green about maybe getting it edited and him doing that or whatever. And he never responded. Didn't think anything of it. So then June rolled around and I was doing promos with you, Tripp, Billy, Johnny, and me. We're doing 5 promos building up to me versus Johnny for my first ever shot at the All-Invitational title. And I messaged Tom Green about editing them for me. No response. And I started looking at this like, that's weird. Like, why would he not, what's going on here? And I started I remember I told you, I texted you, I go, hey, I got a story tonight when we get to work about my paranoia creeping back up. And you came up to me, you're like, ooh, who is it? I was like, you notice how it's weird that Tom Green hasn't responded to either one of us? And you were like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, you're like, who do you think's behind it? And I was like, I gave him this look, and he knew right away. He's like, Billy? I was like, I think so. I was like, I hate to say that, but I think so. So then in June, I pitched to him an idea for what would have happened last Saturday in Rush for Retribution, which would have been me, you, and Billy teaming up and retiring the Dynamite Brigade and the Uprising together. Just get rid of both teams, because the Dynamite Brigade never got a chance to have their one last, us backstage saying, hey, we'll get one last chance, let's tear it up. So I pitched this idea to him, and I pitched it as, it'd be his last match in Lafayette, because I thought he was just going to rep for Class 4, so that's all he did in the internet show. That was, like Saturday Morning Slam or something. Mm-hmm. So that's all he did. I figured that's all he was going to do. Well, I pitched to him, this could be yours and Abel's last matches in Lafayette. We walk away. And I'll never forget this. I laid it out for him, and his response was, anyway.
Yeah, talk about a slap in the face or
yeah,
nut shot or whatever, a little blow.
Exactly, like that. That was how I felt. I was just like, I'm not even worthy of a response. I'm not worthy of an answer.
My thing is I'm always getting on him that, dude, you're just being too paranoid and all this and that. And this is actually one of the times that it actually turned out to be true. That his gut instinct was actually right. Normally I'm saying, dude, you're just being paranoid, just relax, just, no man, I'm serious, And it's just, this one of the times that I could say that, yeah, I was wrong, and yeah, you should go with your gut instinct. But anyway.
So then after that, I started kind of looking at the situation, and July 8th was the last time I ever had a friendly conversation with Billy. I don't remember anything we actually conversated about. I went to his training center, missing out on sleep because I had to work all weekend, but I wanted to work on moves for my match with Johnny. I show up there, and he seemed to forget to tell me he was filming Class 4 stuff. So I show up there, I do one move. I was there for a half hour, and did he say I couldn't do moves? No, but it's like, the guys I was gonna, all the guys here are pretty much doing something. It's like I'm interfering with, and I just thought he could have said, hey, come back next week. That's all he could have said. But regardless, so I leave. And I'm just like, okay, I'm starting to really feel the heat from Billy. Like, he's not talking to me anymore. He's not, keeping me in the loop, nothing. And so I realized, I was like, okay. So I sat back and I decided I wasn't going to contact him, nothing. I was going to see how long it took him to contact me. July 21st, I get a text from Trip Cassidy, his girlfriend, Heidi, who I will touch on them also later. But his girlfriend, Heidi, was working for us. She was Parker's valet. And he texted me, he says, what are we going to do about Dory? Heidi, her real name's Dory. What are we going to do about Dory tomorrow? She's got practice. And I'm like, thinking, she's had practice at the same time as our shows for the last 8 months. And she's been at every show. Like, well, what's the situation? And, I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, Billy wants her written out of the show. This is the night before our July show. He wants her apparently written out of the show in 24 hours on a show she can't be at. And Billy Billy has my number, he has my Facebook, he has so many ways to contact me and he didn't do it. So now I'm really feeling like, okay, well, something's up. So I told Trip, I was like, we'll work around it. And so over the next 2 months, the only time I contacted Billy was about the chairs that we had in his mom's shop that we had to get 2 times. And his response wasn't like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, I'll tell my mom, how you been, man, how'd the show go? Nothing. It's, okay, cool, let her know. Like, that's it. Like, that's all I got. And then he did comment on a Facebook thing, because I used to always quote training day in his school. And I posted the ending scene, and he was, put a comment, I commented back, and that was that. So now we fast forward to the September show. And at this show, everything was perfect for us. We wrote the show, we actually booked the show 2 weeks in advance. For the first time in God knows how long. Like, we had that second win. We were rejuvenated. And we actually had storylines written out from September to March. We had our major, we pretty much had March for Retribution, our major storylines, the stuff we wanted to sell, we had everything booked from September to March, how we were going to do it month to month, everything. So we go to Trip and Sue on that day, and we say, hey, here's what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. They had separate storylines, but their storylines were going to crisscross. Now, Billy knew what we were doing with Trip, not the intricacies of the storyline, but he knew what the basis of it was. Trip and Richie versus the Uprising reunite. So we do the September show. We were on a high. I mean, like, we didn't draw the greatest crowd, but I was on a high anyway because we didn't have anything go wrong. This was like the first time everybody showed up on time. This is like the first time in forever that we didn't have an issue. Do the show, and Trip and Sue were like, oh, cool, everything sounds good, cool. And 2 days later, I get a message from Big Sue Jackson, James Montgomery, saying, this last show is my last show with TPW because Billy's asked me to leave, and I respect his position on it. And I read this, and he's like, hopefully, even though I know there's going to be, I hope there's no heat, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to make this clear. James and at the time, Tim, I had no heat with you guys, and I have no heat with you now, James. The issue is with Billy and the fact that he had my number and he couldn't contact me. So I'm heated at this point. And so I text Tim and I'm like, are you with us? He doesn't respond. So I sent him a Facebook message. Are you with us through October? Because I wanted him to at least drop the tag titles that we were originally going to win against our will. And he finally gets back to me and he says, well, yeah, I'm leaving, but Billy didn't tell me I had to. He's like, I missed out on Galley Lucha bookings 3 times because they were on the same day as your show and you were a close personal friend. He's like, but you see it. Come on, the company's going downhill. I'm learning very little and I'm getting no exposure. At which point I messaged him back. I said, well, he said after October he was done. I was like, well, I appreciate your honesty. I said, but there are a few things I don't really agree with, like the fact that you say you learned very little and get no exposure with TPW, yet he still does RCW religiously.